It's the Mustang Insider Show. Now, here's Chris Sylvester, the voice of the Mustangs.
All right, Chris Sylvester with you as we launch on another Mustang Insider podcast. Glad you're with us as we'll be chatting with Cal Poly head football coach Paul Wulff well after the spring football season ended. But certainly the transactions ongoing. Cal Poly making some big transfer portal additions this week as they gear up for the 2025 season. And yes, spring sports coming to an end here. We wish the best to our baseball team as they get ready for the Big West Baseball Tournament next week in Cal State Fullerton land at Goodwin Field. But we're already starting to think about the gridiron and what the Mustangs might look like in the big sky here coming up this fall. Before we get started, as always, we'd like to thank our partners, especially Dignity Health, French Hospital Medical Center, proud supporters of Cal Poly Athletics. Learn more at dignityhealth.org/French Hospital. Here's our conversation with Mustang head coach Paul Wulff. All right, Coach Wulff is with us, and with the spring football month or so, if you want to call it that, taking place so early in the calendar year, you guys have kind of been at a stalemate here in terms of just getting out there and being with each other. I mean, the spring game was over a month ago? Why is it that you guys elected to do that this year, and how much did that have to do with just the spring transfer portal and kind of what transpired last spring with your quarterback Sam Heward deciding to entering the transfer portal kind of the day after, a couple days after spring ball came to an end?
Yeah, circling back from last year at this time, we did. We lost Sam, who took the majority of the reps all spring practice, and it really kind of put us in a bind. And trying to kind of, work through some new quarterbacks that maybe had not got the amount of reps you'd hope in spring practice. And so, really heading into this off season, after the season, what was important to us is that, one, we knew we had a lot of returning players, which was great. So it allowed us to really kind of get on the football field early. And the advantages of that really are kind of getting a great idea with these young guys, really where they're sitting and what they're doing and what we can expect of them moving forward. And if there were any injuries during spring, it allowed more back end time to get them healed up. The other advantage is getting them in the weight room consecutively for 4 straight months, where you go through maybe a month or two of spring of weight training, then you break it up with a 5-week to 6-week break because you're in the middle of spring ball and you just don't get the volume of lifting during spring practices that you normally would. And then you're back at it for 2 months. And I think all things considered, we feel, and I think, science tells us that if you can get a full 4 months straight training, that you're going to get more out of it at the end of those 4 months than you would if you broke it up. And I think those things all factored into play, in addition to knowing where your team is. And then when you have to explore the transfer portal, you have a better idea what you need, at this time of the year. And I feel like, to me and all of us, it just feels like it's better for our football team right now.
Now, you've been a football coach for a long time and a head football coach for a long time, too, when you look back at your tenure at Eastern Washington and your alma mater, Washington State. How much different is a college football offseason now compared to maybe what your priorities and focuses were back in the 2000s, early 2010s?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different, and I think the things you battle now is it's not usually in years past, your roster would be set by now. And you're only focused on what the next season comes in the recruiting world. But now you're constantly adjusting your roster. You're making moves. You're trying to add, to your roster to make it better in the middle of the year. And really, it is 365 days a year you're working on recruiting and paying attention to your roster because athletes are leaving you. Unfortunately, at times that you're not, prepared, and then you have to be really have a heck of a database and ready to move on a player that's out there. So all the recruiting and building your roster is drastically different than it has been that way. I think when it comes to the training aspect of it, though, I mean, a lot of similarities. We need to be in the weight room and continue to be on top of our game and be in the forefront of what nutrition looks like and the supplements, and making sure we're doing everything in our power to provide our players to improve as much as they physically can. And that's our job to provide the nutrition and the education of these young men and supplements that allow these guys to really develop to their fullest potential.
I mean, there's only so much you can do in certain cases when you talk about, kind of recruiting your own roster and trying to keep guys like Brady Norton, who became such a valuable piece on your offensive line last year. I mean, there's just no world where you wind up keeping that guy. I mean, he goes to Michigan. You can't compete with Michigan's money. You can't compete with Michigan's facilities. I mean, they just won college football playoff national title less than 2 years ago. Kyra Pola winds up at a bigger program, and we've seen some other guys move up to FBS programs. Now, there are a lot of kids that have FBS offers and wind up going to a program like Cal Poly or elsewhere in the Big Sky. You've added 3 FBS transfers this week, and I'm sure there might be some other stuff on the way that you can't officially talk about yet. But what's it like now as you embark on another off season? And I know a good chunk of it's already gone by the wayside here as you get ready for fall camp and the season to begin in late August this year. But I mean, as a staff, when you take those hits and you have to kind of jump in the portal and see what you can actually contend for, what's that process like?
Yeah, I mean it's tough just to continue to figure out, especially when they're putting limitations on your roster numbers, right? And so we don't want to be stuck on the short end of this thing. So unfortunately, we have to have X amount of guys on our roster training right now, and we also have to bring in enough players in case we do lose somebody, right? And so at the end of the day, then someone has to be told they can no longer be part of your program. And I don't like that aspect at all. Um, I hate that part. I mean, I hate that's a strong word, but I really do not like telling young men that they can't be part of our team or program when they've been working hard and doing a lot of the right things. Unfortunately, there's so much more of a true business than it ever has been. And now, people are going to be hurt that way. But it is what it is. It's not personal, it's business. And that's the unfortunate thing when it comes down to the numbers and the allocated numbers you're allowed to have on a roster. And that part stinks. It really does. So those are the hard discussions we have to have, and that's why it's difficult this time of the year because we're getting into that window. We have to tell some young men over the next week or two that we have already had to tell some young men that some of those things, but we got to tell more that it doesn't look like they're going to have an opportunity to come into training camp and be part of the roster.
Paul Wulff, as we chat Cal Poly football here in the spring, although spring balls already came and went for the Mustangs. As you've had some time to reflect on the spring, what stood out to you from a positive standpoint that you really liked, and what are some things between now and fall camp that you'd like to see maybe a position group or a certain area kind of improve upon?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you start on defense, I think just the complement of our defensive line and our linebacking core, a little bit older, a little bit more athletic than we've been. Um, Veteran as a front seven, is veteran as we've been here in a long time. Secondary, there's a few more able young bodies, talented, more depth. Maybe not the veteran uh, experience we have in the front seven, but definitely there's some experience there. So I feel a lot better about our secondary than it's been, and that was encouraging to watch them play defensively. Probably a little bit more sound too, which has been fun to see. Offensively, I think the thing that we have to establish and truly, and we say it, but we've got to be able to run the football. We feel like we brought in some transfers, junior college and a 4-year transfer in the winter that showed some very promise in the spring, in addition to some recent transfers we're bringing in as well. That enrolled in spring and then they'll start in the summer. So I feel like our physicality and our offensive line is going to be drastically better. In addition to our tight end room, as we're adding a couple veteran tight ends that are starting here this summer. That's just going to give us a physicality we have yet to have here in a long time.
Yeah, we talked at the end of last season about, you guys being so young, right? I mean, the last few years we've talked about 70 first or second year players making up a good chunk of the roster. And you talked about maybe having to change the philosophy a little bit and kind of go a little lighter on high school recruiting and go a little heavier on portal. And I think we've seen that, right? This offseason, this is by far and away the most transfers between JUCO and portal that you guys have added. And I don't know where you guys are in terms of the process of getting close to maybe finishing the number of guys you're going to bring in. But what's the biggest difference in recruiting philosophy from this offseason compared to the previous two in your tenure here at Cal Poly as the head coach?
Yeah, I think one, we did target some really good young high school players, and we have some commitments for some kids we think are going to be absolutely outstanding. Probably not obviously in their first year, but there's some potential in this high school class we're bringing in to really do something special. In regards to the transfer piece, I think if you look back my previous 2 years and even maybe a couple of years before that, we've gone really heavy with defensive players out of in high school. We've signed a lot of players. I think that we've probably been a little shy on the offensive end, and so that's where bringing in some veteran transfers on offense this year was a premium for us to kind of match up with the scholarships and the numbers of players we've brought on defense over the last few years. So I feel like we finally have some balance with some maturity on both sides of the ball, and the veteran players this offseason in the portal have allowed us to do that. And so I feel like for the first time, we in our offense and defensive fronts want to believe we can go toe to toe with everybody on our schedule in the fronts. As we all know, it starts there. And then obviously the ability to be a little bit more explosive than we've ever been on offense, and having the ability at the receiver position and at quarterback, whether we're running the ball at quarterback and or throwing it, we got to take another step of explosive ability there at that position. We've recently added Anthony Grigsby as well at quarterback, who we feel very strongly about that he has a potential to give us some explosive plays. But we like the progression of what Jackson Akins has done. Ty Diffenbach stepped in the winter and in a difficult situation, just showing up and trying to learn the offense, has shown some potential as well. Bo Kelly has played some football for us. Interesting to see kind of how he progresses through this competition, which it's going to be highly competitive. But we think this position is so critical in the game of football. I think we all know that we need to put ourselves in position to have a couple guys that can really take this thing and move us forward, which I feel like for the first time, since Sam left, we're in that position now where we're going to have the depth of competition. And I think with that as a void for us a year ago, I think that's the position that has to take a huge step. We feel like we've put ourselves in position for somebody to emerge to do that.
That was going to be my next question, and I think you answered a good chunk of it by talking about some of the guys in the quarterback room. But consistency, I think, has often been a question mark at that position for this program, not necessarily in your tenure, but like post triple option. There have been so many different guys that have seen significant time at the quarterback spot. And you talked about, Sam Heward 2 years ago. I mean, outside of when he was injured, I mean, he was pretty much head and above everybody else in terms of being your number one guy in that room. But we saw a bunch of different iterations of the offense last year. And at times, the offense was explosive. Like, you bring Jaden Jones off the pine that first game of Big Sky play at Northern Colorado, and it kind of opens up the running game because you have to account for him as a runner, and it kind of helped the offense gel all together. And then you mix in the Richie Watts package down around the goal line. You mentioned Bo Kelly. He was your week one starter last year. He, outside of some turnovers, I thought he was really efficient throwing the football, but he doesn't have that dual threat type of capability. You talk about a guy like Grigsby coming in here, another College of San Mateo guy, had a lot of success in junior college, redshirted at Nevada in the fall last year, an FBS program. So, I mean, where do you see the value coming from that position? Because you mentioned it's like you have a bunch of different guys in that room, but they all do different things. Is there a world where you'd be happy to have a couple different quarterbacks seeing time come the fall, or would you really just love to see one guy kind of take the reins and set the tone for everybody else on offense? Because I can't imagine playbook wise that it's going to be the same when you have a guy like Grigsby who's got that dual threat capability, and then Akins who's more of a field general pocket passer. That's not to say that Jackson can't move around. We saw that showcased when he played late last year. But I mean, how complicated is that for your offense when you're kind of shuffling different types of quarterbacks and different types of skill sets? Like, where would you ideally like to be landed on when San Diego rolls around?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I think anybody wants the guy, right? And they can play every snap and take you to the promised land and has that capability. And I think in a game of college football, I think to be even more explosive on offense, you have to have some level of the ability to run at quarterback, and that has to be a threat to a defense. It just creates, that extra hat in the quarterback run game and threat. Ideally, we want to be able to settle on two guys that we feel like can lead us somewhere to, we're hoping we can get two guys that can truly do that. And we'll see who that's going to be. We're going to go through summer and we're going to go through fall camp. But if we can get a minimum two guys to really emerge that can lead this team and give us a chance to win any given Saturday, then that's what we're shooting for. If one emerges and takes it in complete control, great. But if we can get two that can help us, ideally that would be best. And that's what we're looking for. And you're right. I think it's been an unsettled position. I think, in fairness to all the quarterbacks that have played here from quite some time, I would say the supporting cast around that person has not been up to par, to where it should be. And there's been times we don't run the ball nearly effective enough to support the quarterback. We don't protect him well enough. So it puts the quarterback in a vulnerable position. And sometimes he gets hit, and we've taken too many injuries at the position. And to me, it's a lack of production overall on offense that puts more stress on the quarterback. So it hasn't been fair to the quarterbacks that have been playing here, to be quite frank. I finally feel like there's no excuses now. I feel like the supporting cast around that position is head and shoulders above where it's ever been. And so now we're looking for that position to really take another step. One, because of the supporting cast, and two, because of just the experience and talent we now have at the position. So the combination of both should really help that position excel this year.
Well, it looks like you've gotten a lot of help for that offensive line. I mean, even with the departure of Brady Norton and some veteran guys that don't have any eligibility remaining or have gone off elsewhere, that certainly looks like a key position group that you guys as a coaching staff really added to this offseason. Running back spot. Who do you like in the running back room right now? And I know like you just kind of alluded to, I know the running numbers aren't always necessarily indicative to the skill set of those guys at the tailback slot. But you're talking about the supporting cast. I mean, they need the necessary blocking up front. They need quarterback to be a threat to sling the ball downfield, because you get into these predicaments where you become one-dimensional and defenses are kind of just sniffing out one thing, and it's easy to do that when only one thing is going for you on the offensive end. So who do you like right now in the running back room? And who might emerge as a consistent bell cow, if you will, for this team in the fall?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, we feel good about in terms of the number of young men that can operate at the position right now. Who, like quarterback, will one or two really emerge, right? We're hoping that some one or two can literally, carry us in a game if need be. Do we know who that is? I'm not sure yet. I look at Zion Hall as a veteran player that's been here. When healthy, he's shown some really promising things, but the consistency to stay healthy just has not been something for him just yet. But he has the capability to do some really good things for us. Paul Holyfield is back after really a year and a half off, but has surprised us in spring in terms of how healthy and actually quicker than he looked before his knee injury. That was interesting to watch him. I think we have a couple freshmen we redshirted that we think can do some really good things. Jaden Matthews is one, Malachi Brown and Trey Wilson. These are all young men, along with Kendrick Sanders, who got hurt last year. These are all young men that have shown some flashes, and so we're excited to see what they do. Troy Fletcher at times has showed some things, and we're looking, and we may bring in one more running back here shortly. We're seeing kind of where that's at. It might be a bigger, thicker guy that has a little bit more power to run between the tackles. We're looking at that right now as a possibility. But somebody we're hoping again will emerge, and again, competition should be able to bring some of that out. And you want to play, you're going to have to really show the consistency and the playmaking ability, and we feel like the competition in that room is going to be as high as it's ever been for us.
Elijah Ponder had a terrific career here. He goes on. I know he didn't get drafted, but inked an undrafted free agent deal with the New England Patriots. What was it like kind of being by his side during that process? And are you confident that there's a chance he could either crack the roster or the practice squad and eventually work his way into maybe playing on some Sundays?
Yeah, it was a fun process to go through. In all my years of having players that have gone on and played in the NFL and coaching in the NFL, I really thought this young man was going to be drafted somewhere in the third, fourth round. I think he's that talented, definitely. The fact that he didn't shocked me. But as he goes into camp, I will be surprised if he stays healthy and just practices and plays like he's capable of. I don't see how he won't make that roster and have a very successful career. He's got all the tools you really want, and So we'll see, but it was fun to watch him. I think what is great to see is we turn over this roster and we continue to have players develop and grow. And here, them watching Elijah go through the process has been very valuable. His pro day here was really in some way electric. I mean, the numbers he put up are off the charts. And to have 18 of the NFL teams here on that day, have our players watching that. I mean, those are the goals and things that our players need to see here. They need to, obviously, they know they're coming here for a great education, but they need to be able to have an opportunity to do both, right? And play at the highest level on the field and have that inspiration and watch that it can happen here at Cal Poly from the high to the highest level, and then obviously getting their degree from an elite institution. So all those things were very important, and it's great to have someone like Elijah, who is a phenomenal academic student, architectural engineer, and then now have an opportunity to play professional football. I mean, we want to have as many of those type of young men in our program as we possibly can have.
I want to look ahead to the fall, and I know that in your mind there's just so much time left, and there really is. I mean, there's really so much time between now and August 30th when you open the season down in San Diego again, just like you did last year. And when you look back at 2024 in the schedule, and that was one of the games certainly that felt like you probably could have, should have won. A lot of self-inflicted mistakes in that game that it would have been nice to have an extra 5 minutes on the clock, right? You probably feel like you win that game. But when you look at the schedule, there are some similarities, right? You open at San Diego, you've got the FBS game week 2. This time it's Utah. And then you've got Western Oregon here at home, which is obviously a Division II game that you guys expect to roll in. But the added wrinkle is a 12th game, and you guys were the only team in the Big Sky that didn't play the 12th game last season, and obviously understandable as to why you did that with such a young team and trying to limit the physicality aspect and the injury aspect before the Big Sky. But Stephen F. Austin is one of the more mature and talented FCS programs there is out there. They've flirted with going FBS in recent years, and I think they're probably still trying to do that. But when you look at the schedule, and you always know that the Big Sky is going to be a gauntlet, how do you measure improvement? How do you measure success? Is it simply just wins and losses? Like maybe you win 2 more games this fall and you feel like that's a huge step forward to this program? Or I mean, how do you measure that? How do you measure the year-to-year success? Because I think it was pretty easy to see how much better you guys were last year compared to your first season, right? I mean, I know you didn't have Sam Heward at the quarterback spot. You didn't have a talent like that at quarterback from the start of the season to the end of that season consistently, but you look back at Idaho State, that was a winnable game. Idaho on the road was a winnable game. Weber State to close the season was a winnable game on top of a couple of others. So how do you kind of straighten out some of those results? And what are your thoughts on this schedule? It's obviously another challenging slate.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think even last year we were in some games that we had a very good chance of potentially pulling out and winning, which could have obviously changed your win total from another 2 to 3 more games, which would have looked a lot different overall. But what to measure ourselves really is just, are we playing tough competitive football? Is it sound football? Are we executing when it matters? Are we doing things that good teams do to win football games? You may not always come out on top every Saturday, but if you're doing things that generally would put you in a position to win football games, sound tackling, sound defense, the ability to be explosive and take care of the football. That's how you got to kind of analyze the production of your football team and look at those parts that all matter, that are important to winning football games. I think that is number one. And then looking at our schedule, like you said, I mean, how do you measure it? I don't know, because this will be our toughest schedule, bar none, than what we've had. You look at a 12th game and you've got 2 road games. We got 7 road games. You're at Utah, which is probably a much stronger football team than Stanford. Stephen F. Austin is a preseason top 20, 25 team right now on the road. That's going to be a tough football game. There's no doubt about it. And then you look at our conference play. We're playing all the stronger teams in the league. You look at the 3 non-conference teams we do not face. They may end up at the bottom of the conference. Who knows? With the portal, you never know who's going to be the strongest or not. At the end of the day, we just want to play great sound football, put ourselves in a position to win in every game, be in every game in the fourth quarter with an opportunity to win, and find ways to pull games out. And we'll gauge it as we go. And the bottom line is we play hard, and we play hard, tough-nosed football, and that's what we're working towards.
There's something to be said for setting the tone early in the season. You almost feel like if you win that San Diego game, maybe some of those close game results are a little different, right? Later in the season. I mean, it's just kind of just the momentum of what a win does for your team compared to a loss. And I know it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And in a 12-game football season, when you play a game and it makes up such a big percentage. I mean, this isn't baseball. This isn't basketball where you lose one game and you've got to, two more games right after that
Right.
to try to turn things around. So I look at this early season schedule and San Diego's a really good Pioneer Football League team. I know that's a game you feel like you have to win here off the bat.
Mhm.
And it's a game you feel like you should win as a program coming from the Big Sky. But you talk about the Utah road game, you talk about the Stephen F. Austin road game, and then the gauntlet that is the front half of the Big Sky schedule at Sac State, home against Davis, at Montana, home against Montana State. I mean, you're looking at, four perennial, like you said, top 25-ish programs right there. I mean, Sac State's had a complete 180 from a coaching staff and roster standpoint. I mean, they're trying to get out of the Big Sky and do some crazy things. I don't know how that's going to work out for them when it's all said and done. But
Yeah.
I mean, how important is it in your mind to grab some victories early in the season? Because you look at the back half of this Big Sky schedule, and look, I want to throw a disclaimer. There's no soft spots in a Big Sky schedule. There really isn't. Like
Mhm.
preseason number 11, 12, it doesn't matter. Those are still really good football teams, you guys included. But, I mean, is there something to be said about maybe grabbing some victories early in the year? And, I mean, you just never know how a stretch like Sac State, Davis, Montana schools back to back to back to back is going to shape out. But if you can get past that hurdle alive, you've got Portland State, Idaho State, Northern Arizona, and Eastern Washington, your last four. And the two or three of those teams might wind up being bubble playoff teams when it's all said and done. But is there something to be said for setting the tone early in the season to just kind of keep the confidence alive? And obviously there hasn't been a ton of winning involved with this program in the last decade, and a lot of that is changing over from triple option to what you guys are doing now. A lot of that has just been the landscape of college football changing, and Cal Poly, along with many other FCS programs, trying to adjust. How important is it to win a couple games that first month and just kind of keep that belief among everybody in the locker room, knowing that it's a marathon of a season, and you could lose a game, and sometimes it feels like the season's over, but that's not going to be the case for this team with 12 games on the schedule and a lot of opportunities to get right.
Yeah, it's you're right. I mean, it's going to be important to win games and win some early and build confidence off those wins. And I believe that's going to happen for us. But I do. You like anybody, you got to have a little luck. And what does that mean? You got to have the ball bounce your way a few times, and stay healthy at the right spots. And not lose some tremendously key players. Um, and so all those things got to kind of come into play a little bit for you for anybody in any season. Um, but I think that we're in a position where we're actually, going to be able to create our own luck, and it's not like waiting for something positive to happen to you. I actually think we can create that, and I think a lot of people do that. I don't know that we've been in that position in the past. I do think moving forward, we've got enough quality football players on this team that are hungry, that have been working really hard, have really improved. I think we're going to make things happen in our favor, and I think we're going to earn the things we want to earn. And you're right, there's going to be some tough games, there's going to be some tough days, but who knows? It doesn't mean we won't come out on top, and get ourselves in a position where we win some games early, and then all of a sudden we're in a game late and we find a way to win it. Or we play a game maybe not our best, but we still find a way to win that game. And that's where those are our next steps with this program is finding ways to win some games, then win some close games, and then find ways to maybe not play your best and still find a way to pull one out. So those are all goals and things that we need to see this year. Those are things I want to see this year from this football team. I think we're capable of those things for sure. How it unfolds in the season, who knows? But I feel like we're in that position now with the roster standpoint. And yes, it's going to be a challenging, tough schedule, but I like it. I'm excited for it. I think our players are very excited about the challenge in front.
Last thing for you, drive down California Boulevard and you see you know, seemingly every week how they're adding to the John Madden Football Center. What's the latest on that? Is the hope to still maybe open the doors on that thing come the end of the regular season? And how, I know it's so, it's a lot about money now in the portal, and I know you guys are working hard on being competitive in NIL, and that's obviously continuing to make progress. But like, how important is that going to be, just recruiting wise, to make a difference when you're trying to beat out somebody else? And you have beat out other Big Sky programs. Like, you check the Twitter pages, some of these cats you've gotten in the portal, they've been offered by other Big Sky programs, and they've opted to come to Cal Poly. How big of a piece is that going to be when it's finally all said and done? Because it seems like we've been talking about it for a long time. But I mean, it really is starting to make some progress to the point where you can start to think about that thing being done and actually getting inside there and using it to your benefit.
Yeah, well, it's definitely helped us in the portal. I mean, some of these young men come from other programs where they've had phenomenal facilities to work out of, and they see that we got one coming, or maybe they've come from some programs that have okay facilities, and they're thinking, wow, this one's even better. And when this is actually complete and visual, and you can step into the thing, it's only going to help us moving forward with every single recruit we sign. You know, we've lost some kids strictly because our facility is not done, or some of the other, some other teams in the Big Sky have completed facilities, and they've just simply said, Coach, listen, I can walk in day one, the facility's done. I just feel like it's further ahead than where you guys are at or have been, which is true. But they need to see the big picture over a 4 or 5 year period, and we lost a few. But I think those days are going to be gone here. Obviously, come November when this thing is close to being completed, it's definitely going to help. You look at the state of California. There's players all over the United States playing college football right now at all levels. And if any of them, for whatever reason, want to get back to the West Coast, the thing that they're going to be able to do is, one, come back to a phenomenal academic institution, the location, which we all know about, and now they have a facility to walk into that is as nice as anyone, and as new as anywhere in the country. That's only going to help our cause. And as we continue to elevate the recruiting, the field of play is going to improve as well. So it's been fantastic already. Its full effect isn't in play yet. I can only imagine when it's complete and what that's going to look like. And then not only is it the attraction of it, but really it's the operational day-to-day piece and the value the athletes that are in this building are going to receive and be able to help. I mean, just having team meetings all together and not having separate rooms across campus and walking up and down the hill from the locker room to all that lack of inefficiency and the lack of being able to be together consistency like a lot of programs have when they have their facility. We've been missing out on all those things. And that doesn't always drive great connection or connectivity with your players when they're spread out all the time. And once we're able to have a facility like these other schools do, where we're together all the time, that it only helps draw the team closer together. And those are the things that are going to provide tremendous value outside of the recruiting aspect, then probably more important for the chemistry and the growth of this football team and program. So the combination of both, when that's complete, is going to really elevate us and put us in a whole different stratosphere than wherever Cal Poly has ever been.
Not too difficult to see the progress with the John Madden Football Center, and not difficult to see the progress with this Cal Poly program. Head coach Paul Wulff, kind enough to take some time out of his afternoon and join us. Coach, as always, we appreciate your time. We're really fired up for fall camp and looking forward to seeing what you guys can do with 12 games on the docket this fall. Appreciate your time.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
This has been the Mustang Insider Show. The preceding has been a Learfield's presentation on the Cal Poly Sports Network.